everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell with news and views from the Nefarium on Thursday, August 8th, 2024. Before we get to a very short, but I think very important story today, I want you to remember that tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time, we do have the first of our August 2024 vid chats. So that means tonight you've got till 10 o'clock U.S. Central Time to get your comments and questions posted. Remember, we take them in the order that we receive them. So the later you wait, the higher your chances are that we will not get to your questions and comments, and you'll have to repost them in the next vid chat. And some of you out there seem to think that 10 o'clock U.S. Central Time means 11 o'clock U.S. Central Time. It doesn't. So please remember to check your time zone if you're one of those people that likes to wait to the very last minute to sneak things in, which drives me crazy. Now, let's get to the topic of the day. I have to admit, I had a real difficult time deciding whether or not to go with this story or with two other stories, one of which was an op-ed piece warning Americans of the dangers of the way we approach politics by arguing that essentially we tend to view politics looking for a savior that's going to come and fix everything. Gee, I wonder who that might be. I've noticed this trend in American politics myself for a very long time. Most of you have as well. It's almost as if the country were conceived in a theocratic sense rather than a constitutional sense. And I would aver that that outlook is part and parcel the result of the secular society that we live in and viewing government as God. In other words, the whole thing is idolatrous if you want to get right down to it. But the other part of today's show, I was debating whether or not to include in that story a story I saw out of Israel where some Israelis are practicing the red heifer ritual to reconsecrate the dome of the rock and make themselves ritually pure so that they can go into it. Gee, again, could we be waiting for someone? So I was going to do my news and views on messianism and false expectations in today's news and views. And by the way, folks, that doesn't mean I am not a believer in the second coming, but you have to understand that in the right way. And I guarantee you, as I've been saying for many years now, the fulfillment's the deception, and most people out there haven't got a clue what I'm meaning by that or what's really meant by the second coming. Anyway, I decided to play it safe and go with a much shorter but equally important story that fell right off the radar this last week. And I hope that this story is a presage of things to come, because it's actually a bit of good news. And there's a bit of personal involvement for me in relating this story, because I myself have been the victim, and this website have been the victim, of so-called fact checkers at YouTube and Facebook and everything else removing posts or comments that I've made simply because they disagree with me. And one of the worst offenders in this regard, I can remember the day when this website first started, that I could rely upon the way I post tags and comments to draw traffic to the website from Google. And I can tell you that they have so engineered and doctored their algorithms that if you're someone like me, as most of you out there know, we do not get half a chance on their algorithms. So, there's a little story out titled "Federal Court Judge Rules Google is an Illegal Monopoly." Let me read that part of the headline once again. Federal court judge rules Google is an illegal monopoly and violated antitrust laws by abusing their search monopoly. And let me read this part of this article because there's another clue in here as to what may be going on. So I'm going to read from the beginning and the middle and the very end. This is a very short article, so I'm almost reading all of it. Quote, a federal judge ruled on Monday that Google illegally monopolized the search market and violated antitrust laws. The ruling by Judge Amit Mehta of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia marks the first anti-monopoly decision against a tech company in decades. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey celebrated the court order ruling today. Skipping a few paragraphs. Judge Amit Mehta in Washington said the Alphabet Incorporated unit's $26 billion in payments to make its search engine the default option on smartphones and web browsers effectively blocked any other competitor from succeeding in the market. Quote, Google's distribution agreements foreclose a substantial portion of the general search services market and impair rivals' opportunities to compete, unquote, Mehta said in a 286-page ruling. By monopolizing distribution on phones and browsers, Google has been able to consistently raise prices of online advertising without consequences, Mehta said. And I'm skipping to almost the last paragraph here. Antitrust enforcers allege that Google has illegally maintained a monopoly over online search and related advertising. The government said that Google has paid Apple, Samsung Electronics Company, and others billions over the decades for prime placement on smartphones and web browsers. This default position has allowed Google to build up the most used search engine in the world and fueled more than $300 billion in annual revenue, largely generated by search advertisements, unquote. So in other words, the party's over, Google. Now, there's two reasons I find this whole thing interesting. And we're going to get to the second and more important reason in just a minute. But I want you to notice the name of the judge, and that this judge is in the District of Columbia, Amit Mehta. Now, I have no idea if I'm even pronouncing it closely. I have no idea what language this even is. It looks to me possibly Arabic, but it could be Sanskrit or something. I don't know. But my point here is we have a judge in the most, let's just call it progressive and out of control legal jurisdictions in the country that just made this ruling, which I think is highly significant. It's a little sign that perhaps the progressivist bandwagon isn't steaming and chugging along just as smoothly with people in that community that they would like. So one can only hope. But the real story is that this was a ruling against Google's search engine monopoly on browsers. I don't care about all you smartphone users because I don't have a smartphone and I don't want one. I can't afford my heart medicine and health insurance, let alone being able to afford a smartphone. So the real news, I think, here is what this might presage for further legal developments. And by that I mean we have watched in the last few years these tech companies stomp all over people's freedom of speech on their platforms. We have watched them use their power to promote a particular political agenda. And guess what, folks? It's not traditional. So this might be a opening that will eventually lead to some decisions requiring these companies to acknowledge that they are in the public platform, they are part of the public square, and therefore absolutely must be brought to heel on their so-called fact-checking and censorship. That's my hope. Otherwise, we can hang it up and call it quits and hope for the next great turning of freedom in another another half millennium or so, because this is very important. And all of you out there who've been following the developments, particularly in the alternative media, know that this is a very, very bad thing that they've been up to lately, and we're seeing the results all over the Western world. So a bit of a glimmer of hope. I promise you I will try and blog at some point about political messianism and all of that stuff, but think Woodrow Wilson, Franklin Roosevelt, Lyndon Johnson, all these people, Donald Trump, all these people that are going to fix everything, or cackling Kamalarkey. It's just a meme, but it's not something that we can disconnect from this Google story, because again, what they're trying to do is censor free speech. So hopefully this decision is a decision in that direction. Time will tell. In any case, that'll do it for today's news and views. Don't forget, we have the vid chat tomorrow. As usual, I'll be in there early trying to get everything set up and make sure that everything is running smoothly. If for whatever reason, I'm not expecting or they're not predicting any bad weather, but if for whatever reason I'm not able to log in tomorrow, remember that we'll try and do a makeup chat sometime in the future. That's it for today's news and views, everybody. Bye-bye. God bless, and we'll see you on the flip side. Bye-bye.